My parents sold my grandmother's house behind her back, thinking they'd finally secured their multi-million-dollar payday. They literally called from their luxury ski resort in Aspen, laughing about how easy it was to manipulate an old woman. My mother even said, "It's business, sweetie, she'll adapt." But they didn't know that the house wasn't theirs to sell. In fact, while they were busy celebrating their greed, two strangers in tailored black suits knocked on Grandma's door and handed me a sealed manila folder, signed by Grandma herself months earlier. When our family lawyer opened it at the emergency meeting, the color drained completely from my parents' faces. Grandma wasn't a victim. She was a master strategist who had quietly set a trap that would completely ruin them. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached. My name is Chloe. I'm 26 years old, working a grueling job as a marketing assistant in the city, but my true sanctuary has always been my grandmother's house. At 79, Evelyn was more than just family. She was my anchor. The day she turned 79, I arrived at her beautiful, historic estate with a heart full of anticipation. I had spent weeks helping her plan a modest celebration, inviting our closest relatives. But as I walked through the front door, the silence hit me like a physical blow. The living room was perfectly decorated. Streamers hung from the ceiling, and a gorgeous, untouched birthday cake sat on the dining table. Sitting right beside it was Grandma Evelyn. She was entirely alone in the quiet house, dressed in her favorite cardigan, staring softly at the single lit candle. My parents, Richard and Eleanor, were completely MIA. Just an hour before the party, they had called from a luxury ski resort in Aspen, Colorado. Through the static of the speakerphone, I could hear loud laughter and clinking glasses in the background. My mother casually dismissed the entire milestone, saying, "Oh, Chloe, don't be so dramatic. It's just another birthday, and the snow here is perfect. We'll catch her next time." That was my parents in a nutshell. High-earning, deeply debt-ridden materialists who treated Grandma like an expensive inconvenience. They preferred chasing status in Aspen over showing basic human decency. As I sat down next to Grandma, blowing out the candle together, a burning anger settled in my chest. They thought they could ignore her forever. The next morning, the heavy silence of the house was replaced by the rhythmic hum of the vacuum cleaner as I helped Grandma Evelyn clean up the untouched party decorations. My hands were busy, but my mind was spinning with residual anger at my parents' cold dismissal. That anger turned into absolute dread when a sharp ringtone echoed from the kitchen island. It was my father's phone, synced to the house tablet they had left behind. Before I could press ignore, the call connected automatically on speakerphone. Richard's booming, arrogant voice cut through the room, accompanied by my mother's high-pitched giggles. But they weren't calling to check on Grandma. They were talking to a high-end real estate agent. "Listen, Marcus," my father gloated, the sound of an upscale Aspen coffee shop bustling in the background. "The paperwork is practically finalized. We're pushing the listing live this week. That historic property is a gold mine, and we need that capital closed before next month's debt cycle hits." I froze, the vacuum handle slipping from my grip. My mother chimed in, her tone dripping with chilling casualness. "Evelyn won't even realize what happened until the movers show up. She's too frail and slow these days to understand legal structures anyway. That old power of attorney she signed during her hospital scare 3 years ago gives us total control." They were secretly selling Grandma's beloved home right out from under her, using a deceptive legal loophole to bail themselves out of their own financial ruin. Tears of fury stung my eyes as I spun around to shield Grandma from the brutal betrayal. But as I looked at her, my heart skipped a beat. Evelyn wasn't crying. She stood perfectly still, a strangely calm, calculating sharpness flashing in her eyes. The chilling realization of my parents' betrayal hung heavy in the air all through the next morning. Every creak of the floorboards felt like a ticking clock, counting down the days until Richard and Eleanor returned to strip Grandma of her dignity. By the following afternoon, the tension was unbearable. I was aggressively vacuuming the living room rug, trying to channel my anxiety into frantic physical labor, while Evelyn sat quietly by the window, sipping her tea as if nothing was wrong. Suddenly, a heavy, authoritative knock echoed through the quiet house. It wasn't the polite tap of a neighbor or the hurried drop-off of a delivery driver. It was loud, deliberate, and official. I turned off the vacuum, my heart instantly leaping into my throat. When I pulled open the heavy oak front door, I didn't find real estate agents with measuring tapes or foreclosure signs. Instead, two serious-looking men in sharp, tailored black suits stood on the porch. They looked like high-stakes corporate operatives, completely out of place in our quiet neighborhood. The taller man stepped forward, his expression entirely unreadable. "Are you Chloe?" he asked, his voice low and clinical. When I nodded numbly, he reached into a sleek leather briefcase, pulled out a thick, heavily sealed corporate legal folder, and handed it directly to me. My eyes dropped to the front cover. Emblazoned across the bottom, in striking, flawless ink, was Evelyn's elegant cursive signature. It was dated exactly 3 months prior. Before I could even speak, Grandma's soft footsteps echoed in the foyer behind me. She smiled warmly at the grim couriers, thanked them politely, and looked down at me. "Open it, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice laced with an icy confidence I had never heard before. "It's time you see what your parents are actually trying to sell." With trembling fingers, I broke the heavy wax seal and opened the thick manila folder. What I expected to find was a standard medical will or a simple power of attorney. Instead, a mountain of complex financial spreadsheets, bank statements, and corporate legal filings spilled onto the kitchen island. As my eyes scanned the documents, the true genius of Grandma Evelyn's quiet brilliance began to unfold. Before her retirement decades ago, Evelyn hadn't just been a housewife, she had been a senior corporate accountant for a major firm. Months before my parents even conceived their betrayal, her meticulous eye had caught severe discrepancies. She discovered that Richard had been systematically forging her signature on minor loan documents to cover his exploding gambling debts, while Eleanor was actively embezzling funds from her own boutique consulting clients to maintain their hollow Aspen lifestyle. Anticipating their desperate endgame, Evelyn had silently launched a preemptive strike. 3 months prior, she had formally and irrevocably revoked the old power of attorney, rendering my parents' legal leverage completely useless. But she didn't stop there. To ensure they couldn't try to manipulate her ever again, she had legally moved every single penny of her liquid wealth into a protected private trust under my name. Then came the brilliant poison pill. Evelyn had quietly taken out massive corporate mortgages against her own historic estate, draining every ounce of its equity. She didn't spend the cash. She funneled it directly into our hidden trust. The house they were trying to sell behind her back was now a financial empty shell, heavily tied to complex commercial liens. If my parents forced a sale through their shady corporate entities, those multi-million-dollar debts would automatically transfer directly onto their own shoulders. The front door burst open with a jarring bang, shattering the quiet sanctuary of the house. Richard and Eleanor practically marched into the foyer, looking flushed, arrogant, and smelling of expensive airport champagne. They were still wearing their high-end winter designer gear from Aspen, completely radiating the obnoxious energy of people who believed they had just conquered the world. My father didn't even bother taking off his coat before pulling a crisp, glossy brochure from his leather briefcase and tossing it onto the kitchen island. "Well, Evelyn," he announced, his voice booming with a toxic blend of triumph and false warmth. "We have some monumental news. We've officially finalized a massive closing deal with a prominent foreign development firm. The historic estate is officially sold for a staggering $2.4 million. My mother stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with synthetic pity as she tapped the glossy brochure. "We've already picked out an absolutely lovely assisted living community for you out in the valley, sweetie. They have wonderful group activities. Chloe, you need to start packing your grandmother's things immediately. The new buyers want a completely vacant property within 30 days. They stood there grinning, practically vibrating with the absolute peak of their apparent victory. They truly believed they had successfully stolen her legacy to fund their debt-ridden lives, completely oblivious to the fact that they were walking directly into a buzzsaw. I remained perfectly still, refusing to give them the angry reaction they expected. Instead, I took a slow, deep breath, reached into my bag, and calmly placed Evelyn's thick, sealed, hidden legal folder directly on top of their shiny real estate brochure. Richard let out a mocking laugh, casually reaching for the folder as if it were nothing more than a minor annoyance. "What's this, Chloe? A list of demands for the nursing home?" He sneered, flipping the cover open. But as his eyes hit the first page, his smug smile instantly vanished. Beside him, our family attorney, who my parents had aggressively summoned to execute our swift eviction, leaned over to review the legal filings. Within seconds, the lawyer's face turned completely pale and his hands began to visibly tremble. "Richard, Eleanor, what have you done?" the attorney whispered, his voice cracking with sheer terror. My mother frowned, her voice rising in panic. "What do you mean, Martin? It's a simple house sale." The lawyer shook his head frantically, pointing at the documents. "It's not a simple sale. Because you pushed this transaction through your private family LLC to illegally bypass standard property taxes. You didn't just sell an asset. You legally assumed everything tied to it. Your mother officially revoked your power of attorney 3 months ago. She heavily mortgaged this property under corporate liens, and by finalizing the closing deal, your LLC just automatically absorbed a massive $2 million corporate debt." Richard gasped for air, his eyes bulging as the terrifying financial reality crashed down on him. The foreign developer's contract contained a strict, non-refundable fraud clause. Backing out meant immediate criminal prosecution. They were now personally liable for millions, facing total bankruptcy and long-term prison time for elder abuse and wire fraud. Meanwhile, the actual cash from the developer hadn't gone to their accounts at all. It was sitting safely inside the private, protected trust that Grandma Evelyn had established exclusively under my name. They were utterly ruined by their own trap. 3 months later, Grandma Evelyn and I are sitting on the porch of a beautiful beachfront cottage, listening to the waves crash against the shore. We purchased this peaceful sanctuary in cash using the trust, completely free from the toxic shadows of our past. Richard and Eleanor were forced to sell their luxury cars, liquidate their assets, and move into a cramped, tiny apartment, working multiple grueling jobs just to stay out of federal prison. Greed is a strange thing. It completely blinds people to the quiet intelligence right in front of them. My parents thought they were outsmarting a frail old woman, but Grandma proved that wisdom will always triumph over arrogance. Now, I'm curious about you. What would you have done if you discovered your own family trying to steal your legacy? Comment your thoughts below. Don't forget to check out the 2 videos on your screen for more jaw-dropping stories.